Hi, guys. Welcome to Coastal Conservative News. I'm Michelle Pozzie.
And I'm Aly Legge. Thanks for joining us today. We have a very wonderful special guest. Her name is Ramona Bessinger, and she is known for being a whistleblower for what is going on in Rhode Island schools. Ramona, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me on your show today. Thank you.
Wonderful. Now, we know a lot of us here are not new to the fight within our school system. I think COVID blew the doors open for people and parents to see maybe what was happening behind the curtain. In states like Rhode Island, though, you took it an extra step to be a whistleblower. Tell our viewers a little bit of the backstory. You were first a teacher and you saw something and spoke up, right?
Yes, after we came back from COVID, the 2021 school year, I noticed the curriculum content was like nothing I'd ever seen. There was a lot of, bizarre sexual content, the inappropriate sexual content, but also because I teach English, the traditional books that I've been tasked to teach for 20 plus years were no longer in my classroom. In fact, they were thrown out and put, into dumpsters, textbooks being thrown out, and a new curriculum came in. And that curriculum had all sorts of strange images and strange lesson plans and content that was clearly anti-American in nature and seemed just bizarre. So initially I sounded the alarm. And even before sounding the alarm, I went to my administrators and my teacher leaders, and I got a lot of people were just like, just say nothing, don't,
Wow.
but
So
yeah,
the people you went to that were trusted in your circle of influence in your job that were a part of the chain of command to kind of be a stop loss for some
Yeah.
of this, you brought this information to them and they literally told you to just not say anything?
they literally told me that to not say anything and that this was a new wave of education materials that we were tasked with teaching. And we're no longer going to be teaching the Holocaust. We're no longer going to be teaching the classics, at least at this school in this curriculum platform. It was all very, what we now know as DEI framed, or CRT at the time, we thought it was. Um, yes, and so I was sort of it was all sort of hush hush, and nobody really knew exactly where this curriculum content came from. And at the end of the school year, after a lot of pushback, a lot of, I think, just really horrible harassment of, if you can believe it, a mother and a teacher of many years in good standing, I finally went to the Education Oversight Committee and, sort of pled my case there. And much to my surprise, I was not received well even there. And then I spoke with a journal called Legal Insurrection,
Yes.
and Professor William Jacobson printed my story, shared my story, and that sort of took a life of its own. As you know, over the past couple of years, I've been working very hard to continue exposing this content.
Well, and I remember specifically hearing about you sounding the alarm on media literacy. This affects even what Aly and I do. The idea that we have First Amendment protections and that we should be teaching that in our schools. What were you hearing and what were you seeing with this media literacy program that sounds really good, Ramona? But what was really behind that?
Well, that is the key thing. It all sounds really good. It
Mm-hmm.
sounds like we should have empathy. We should be embracing these strategies and lesson plans and initiatives in K-12 schools. But quite frankly, I went through the teacher training for media literacy, and I was absolutely shocked. First of all, the media literacy instructors were very focused on singling out conservative voices or any voice that spoke against their collectivist mindset. And if the term collectivism isn't familiar, I really think it's sort of a DEI or sort of, interesting way for them to really talk about communism. And that's in fact what this media literacy was pushing into the schools. Although they'll say, "Oh, no, 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 we're watching and making sure that harmful materials aren't getting in front of children, when in fact, media literacy lesson plans, and I have many of them, are pushing UN agenda items, radical leftist political items, so forth and so on. So I wrote a story about that, yes, and exposed that.
My
Well, and
goodness.
so you think that you're getting this training for I would think this would be a great way to let students know the harms of being engaged in social media, maybe it's the pitfalls of what to watch for. But when you hear these terms of like a disinformation type of police, it reminds me of that COVID-esque time
Yeah.
where it was like turn neighbor against neighbor. The thought that this program could really do that from within the classroom, because they want students to be able to call out something that maybe they don't agree with as disinformation. This is really DEI getting embedded into the curriculum. Can you tell me a little bit about what do parents know in Rhode Island largely about what's taking place in the public school systems? Did you get, when you were able to get the message out, do you feel like parents understood and they engaged in what was going on?
To some degree, I think that people have a certain amount of disbelief. They can't actually believe that this is going on in their school. And why is that? Because children don't really know how, they have nothing to compare it to. So they're not going to go home and say, guess what? This is happening. They might tell snippets here and there. But the full extent of this, um, rollout, this leftist, far left rollout, I don't think average parents probably understand the full extent of it. Um, and so and especially with something like media literacy that is sort of framed in all this political, you know, politically correct language, we're just helping your children stay safe. Oh, no, they're not. Oh, no, they're not. They're actually creating a culture of, ferreting out any dissenting voices within the school. And that means teachers who may not be fully on board in this leftist agenda, or children who may simply say, well, I don't agree with, using pronouns because they go against my religion, or I don't understand even what it means, a pronoun, your LGBT pronouns. That child would be then sort of isolated and focused on and brought to the teacher's attention. I mean, quite literally, disinformation police is what media literacy turns children into.
Oh my gosh, this
It's
rings
like
to the red guard.
yes, well, and it brings
Yes.
in like a thought and feeling police, and at a time, during K through 12, when you should, if you really want to teach tolerance, you teach that active engagement of debate between
Right.
thoughts. I mean, I'm maybe
And
showing
how
my
to
age a little bit,
spot
but
propaganda, I would think would be something in media literacy. Is that not included in the curriculum at all?
The subject of propaganda is always framed around, oddly enough, or not oddly enough, always seem to be framed around Christians or Christian nationalists,
Oh my
which,
goodness.
are apparently it's very scary to come across somebody who is religious or Christian, according to the media literacy gurus that ran this program. So yeah, propaganda was always discussed in relationship to Donald Trump. At that time he was not when I was in this course, he was not president, but his presidency was often referred to, his rallies were referred to as propaganda. I had an intel, even nursery rhymes were not safe from the media
Oh my
literacy
goodness.
police, nursery
So
rhymes were reframed.
at the root of this, it sounds like it is a First Amendment issue because they're trying to silence conservative viewpoints or even alternative viewpoints, right,
right.
from what they deem to be correct and accurate, but also from a religious standpoint as well, where it's
Yeah.
kind of pushing back against a specific religion, and kind of almost forcing students to make that divide there. And I think that falls in line with more of an indoctrination than an education.
Yeah.
And so who do you think is really behind creating this kind of information for children or curriculum
Well,
for kids?
that is an amazing question. I'm really glad you asked it because I think it stems from the UN. And why do I think that? This curriculum content, this mindset is being pushed throughout the Western world. And the curriculum materials, in fact, if you look at French schools or any Western European school, and Britain especially, the children are learning the same content, the
Interesting.
same language.
Wow.
Yes, it's not
So,
just like the United States.
so the UN, it seems like, I wonder who they're partnering with. So this is our journalistic moment here
Well, and
where
it
we're
makes
trying
me,
to figure
I
out
start to think about NGOs. I start to think
yes,
about following the money trail. I want to ask you,
who's coming to the school boards to, offer these? What lobbyists are lobbying your school boards to push this curriculum, this agenda to make sure it's adopted in your school board meetings?
and even beyond that, I want to ask you in Rhode Island specifically, specific to your state, I have seen and read up on some of the debate back and forth trying to push back against this sanctuary state that Rhode Island had become, push back for it being sort of a sanctuary state for trans childhood surgeries. The pharmaceuticals are heavily embedded into Rhode Island. What are you seeing happening in the state representation, even in congressional representation? Do you have any champions that are kind of hearing you and listening to you and wanting to kind of help with what you're seeing?
We have no representation at the federal level. So we are completely overrun with radical, deep blue legislators who are legislating their political agenda to the max. Even if it violates federal law, they don't care. They are we are currently have been labeled now or been legislated into the title of, sanctuary state for any illegal in the world who wants to come here and exist under the radar, undetected. We are also a sanctuary state for this LGBT community seeking out free surgeries, etc., at the taxpayer's expense. And basically we are completely powerless because of the legislation that they're passing. So Rhode Island is nothing short of frightening right now.
Well, and it really, you, you can't help but find a little bit of sort of a humor in this, that the argument started in schools to make sure that the truth was being preached, but at the same time in a state that doesn't understand how people get here legally and doesn't understand biological differences between male and female and want to have these surgeries that scar children for life. I know you said you don't have a lot of support as far as congressionally. What can people do, Ramona, to help you in this fight? And Rhode Island's a beautiful state. Beautiful.
How do we save it?
Yeah, how do we save it? Exactly.
I don't know. Sometimes, I might not have said this a couple of years ago, but I kind of think that without intervention at the federal level, we need help from the DOJ. I don't know what the laws are, how the DOJ can help, but we need somebody to investigate, do a forensic audit of the entire, everything that's happening in K-12 schools, right down to the materials, the policies, and we need help with that because the voices like myself, of course, are far and few between. We have several other moms and dads that are very active in the state, but we're sort of all acting in our own silos trying to get this information out. So how they can help, we're on social media. If you there are various groups. I'm sure if you plug in my name in any of the socials, I'll pop up on X and Facebook, and then there are so many other people that I'll share their content as well. So that's right now that seems to be our strong voice. And we do have a president who is on board with fighting this agenda as well. But we need Congress to act. We need Congress to make some decisions about what is happening in the schools. Because if we don't, I just say this before we go, if we don't fix what's happening in the schools, then we will never change this Marxist, this agenda that we're seeing roll out in our country currently.
Oh, I could not agree more with your statement. I feel like this would be something that Harmeet Dillon would tackle as it seems to violate some civil rights for a lot of folks in Rhode Island. So.
Well, and needing strong, staunch, red-blooded American representation in Congress, somebody that can get out there that has the parents' best interest. All parents has their best interest at heart. I know you have a website, RamonaBessinger.com. You said people can follow you on social media. We would love to continue to have this dialogue, Ramona, and how we can help you as you continue this fight. I want to thank you so much for coming on to Coastal Conservative News today.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was a big help. Thank you.
Thank you. Please continue the fight, guys. Keep it locked here to Coastal Conservative News, Rhode Island, as we continue to tell you about the news that matters most. You're only going to hear it here. Thank you.